read their material. They go through a lot of trouble to justify what they do. For instance, they were criticized for taking sex slaves. Islamic State says, hey, look at the data, look at the information. Muhammad had sex slaves. All the companions of Muhammad, except for one, had sex slaves. The Quran gives the right for sex slaves, so don't criticize us for being bad Muslims.
And then the left worships them. The left is not the left. They're mentally ill demons.
You know, it's really odd. I support equal rights for women and attack the Sharia attack on women's rights. And yet, because I support the equality of women and oppose the Sharia view of women, I'm called a bigot and a hater.
Absolutely. Absolutely. If you don't support generally mutilating women and putting bags over their heads and keeping them as slaves and kidnapping 5-year-old girls and trans-shipping them to be in snuff films, you're a bad person. We are going to have at least 2 hours of live coverage kicking off at 7 o'clock Central of the big primaries happening out in the West, California, the big prize. We've got Leanne McAdoo and Joe Biggs out there reporting. We've got our other reporters at Bilderberg 2016 in Dresden, Germany. The admitted founder of the EU is a Bilderberg Group member, Peter Sutherland. He's the head of the EU and UN Migration and Borders Committees, both of them. And he's openly told the BBC and others, we want to get rid of the whiteness of Europe. It's inherently bad. Well, if you said get rid of the blackness of Africa, that'd be inherently racist. But it's beyond that. The globalists aren't planning to get rid of everybody in the West. They're planning to just bring in incredible tyranny. But to do that first, they've got to bring in huge, uncompatible groups, and then we're all told to comply with them or the Muslims will blow you up. And I said clearly that's where this is going a few years ago. Now they're actually in the news saying, we can't allow Germans to march and say, control our borders, because that might make the immigrants upset. See, not because they care about the immigrants, they're playing everyone off against each other, and the globalists are so authoritarian and have deals with Saudi Arabia now, they think this is controllable. They're on power trips. They're delusional. Or maybe they don't care if we all fall to radical Islam, which is dominant Orthodox Islam in 50 years. I just know this. I have 2 daughters, and I have been at the Domain in North Austin now. I even have photos of it. We're going to do a report soon. I just talked about it, had the memory, and I got physically nauseous. And I was at Barton Creek Mall. I don't go to the mall very often. And I'm telling you, I guess that's the culture to be in the markets at night or whatever. It was every turn was women with full outfits on, full heads covered up. The burqas, not just the hijabs. And these women are born into slavery. These women are, and some of them are under Stockholm Syndrome. I mean, they go along with it and will defend it and teach their kids to blow themselves up. But Austin, you go downtown, folks, it is crawling with Muslims in their full gear. And in the first waves, they're all, pro-West, westernized, all this, not now. Finishing up with our guests, I want to invite back for a full hour in the near future. I really appreciate the doctor coming on with us. His website, everybody should check it out. It's politicalislam.com. Dr. Bill Warner. Summing this up in the next 5-6 minutes, is anything I'm saying wrong on those fronts? Where is it going? Where do you see it ending? I mean, Europe is premeditatedly doing this. Why?
By the way, I was recently in, well, it was a year or so ago, was in Macedonia. And I was throughout the entire Balkans, which was a really educational trip. And when I was in Macedonia, I saw all these new mosques being built, and they're being built by the Turks, the Neo-Ottomans. The Turks have moved in and set up schools. Now, one of the things they will do at these schools is if you, as a Macedonian, will become a Muslim and wear the garb, they will pay you each month a salary for wearing Islamic garb. This is a form of civilizational war, which is brilliant.
That's right. That's why MSNBC, CNN bombs you with women in hijabs on TV, bombs you with how liberal, and the liberal magazines now, even women that the top liberals wear it. I could be a sex slave too. Exactly. So that's it. This is to throw it in our face.
By the way, the name of your show is The War We Should Be Fighting. This war of bullets and bombs that Bush did and that Obama's done, that is not how to defeat Islam. This is an information war. This is a war of ideas, not bullets and bombs.
Yes, sir. And I'm sorry for interrupting you. Get back into that in a moment, but you're absolutely on target. They're flaunting it. And I've been in London just filming a public building, and Muslims run over, you don't film me. Like, I mean, they're very aggressive. So go back to this war, what they're doing.
Well, the word jihad is not well understood. It does not mean holy war. There are 4 kinds of jihad. There's the jihad of the sword, That's like on 9/11. That's violence, murder, and killing. Then there's jihad of speech, jihad of writing, and the jihad of money. The jihad of war is not our problem. The jihad of murder, we can deal with that. We have professional cops. We have professional soldiers. The war that's killing us, Alex, is the war of speech and writing. It is the war of ideas. Because what we're doing now is we're saying that if you have the right ideas, then you can be condemned as being a racist, hater, Islamophobe.
Clearly, we're losing the war to Orthodox Islam. We're losing the info war.
Yes, exactly. And why are we losing the info war? Because the people who should be fighting this information war, let me bring up, I live in Nashville, Tennessee, which is a very religious town. You would think that the ministers in the churches would be all for bringing in Christians who are persecuted in Africa and Middle East. But no, what do? They say, oh, we need the Syrian refugees. We'll show how much we love them. We're going to cure this whole problem with love. So here we have ministers who don't know the Crusades from anything else telling us how to deal with Islam. Again, I do not blame the Muslims and Islam for winning. I blame us for losing. You understand the different viewpoint I have here?
Yes, sir, doctor. And let me be clear. I'm somebody that a lot of the Muslims send countless emails and phone calls going, you used to be our friend, 5, 10 years ago. You exposed so much, and now you're against us. I'm not against anybody. But clearly, I didn't want to have the clash of civilizations. I didn't want to destabilize those regions. I didn't want to fund Saudi Arabia pushing Orthodox Islam that goes after everybody else, like they're heretics and kills them or enslaves them. I'm a friend to humans. But when my governments are allied with a bunch of radicals that turn women into slaves, and then they're telling me I've got to give up my speech, that's it. See, I'm into everybody having their rights. I'm Americana. I'm an Orthodox Americana 1776er. I'm a classical true liberal in the vein of Thomas Jefferson. And when people come after my freedoms, it's over. And so don't worry, Doc. You've been helping win the info war or start some beachheads, and now the info war is on the job. So we see what you're saying, you're dead on, and we're taking action. And I think more people are starting to wake up to this too, aren't they?
Tell you what, I do very little work on the internet. I'm an old man. I'm 75 years old. I read books. You may have been familiar with books in your past.
Yes, sir.
But my wife has taught me how to read on the internet. She's my researcher. I basically live with an intelligence officer. She said, Bill, scan the article, read the comments. And what has happened, Alex, since 9/11 is that we, when I say we, the knowledgeable, those who actually know something about Islam, are beginning to dominate the comments. Our leaders are more corrupt and represent us less and less every day. But the grassroots, let me assure you, is beginning to wake up. All you have to do is read the comments. It used to be the word like hadith or sunnah were never heard in the comments. Now then it's very common for people to quote Islamic doctrine about the hijrah, doctrine about jihad, doctrine about everything. So we are winning at the grassroots level. Where we're losing is at the top.
That's right. But the globalists know when you start winning long term on the ground, that ends up going to the top of the pyramid later. That's why they're coming in with all these pushes for censorship, is because they know we're turning the tide.
And by the way, Alex, out of all of the things in the Bill of Rights, the most important is freedom of speech.
That's right.
Because once you lose freedom of speech, all those others about religion, press,
and Sharia law is, correct me if I'm wrong, diametrically opposed to the First Amendment, because it says Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion and prohibiting the exercise thereof. That's the first line. Under Sharia law, it is state-run religion.
You got it. One of the things when I first started learning about Islam was listening to Islamic leaders, and they would say jaw-dropping things, and I was like, you got to be kidding me, right? But remember the man who wanted to build the mosque at where the World Trade Towers went on? He said the Sharia and the Constitution are exactly the same document, while the Sharia is just an earlier form of the United States Constitution. You look at him and you go, what? Because nothing could be more contrary to our Constitution than Sharia law. Sharia law says that women are not equal to men. Sharia law, by the way, also goes ahead to say that Muslims can have weapons, but not kafirs, not unbelievers. So
by the way, speaking of kafirs, let's talk about Islam a little bit and its view of black people, because I don't know why so many black folks worship Islam, Muhammad Ali, you name it, when there's some stuff I don't want to repeat in the Muslim documents.
One of the great ironies is Muhammad Ali coming out and becoming a Muslim. Do you remember what his original name was? It was Cassius Clay. You knew who Cassius Clay was? An abolitionist. a white abolitionist who wanted to get rid of slavery. And so he adopts the name Muhammad and Ali. Muhammad was a slaveholder. Muhammad was a slave trader. He tortured slaves. He had sex slaves. He captured people and made them slaves. Every black man who came to America came through the hands of a Muslim trader in Africa. So here we have Muhammad Ali, who's now being praised as a really nice guy, but he did his leadership was, for the black community, was disastrous, because he wanted to say to them, oh, Christianity is the religion of the white man. Islam is the religion of the black man. Hello, are you sitting down, Alex? Because I'm getting ready to tell you something. Muhammad was called a white man in the Hadith. Which one is Muhammad? The white man leaning on his elbow. I saw the whiteness of Muhammad's belly on the day of the Battle of the Trench. The Hadith goes outside of its way to make sure to name the race of slaves, and that Muhammad was white. So here we have, quote, Muhammad Ali bringing freedom to the black man in Europe by saying, no, we need to adopt the names of slave owners, Muhammad and Ali. Ali was Muhammad's second cousin and brother-in-law. No, I got that wrong. Son-in-law. And he was also a slaveholder. So here we have poor Muhammad Ali thinking he's doing black folks a favor, when instead he's sealing with silence the fact that every Muhammad Ali's ancestors, Cassius Clay's ancestors, came through the hands of an Arab slave trader in Africa. So
I'd forgotten that. I'd forgotten that Cassius Clay was a famous abolitionist. That's true. Imagine, get rid of the name of a Christian abolitionist and somebody which died trying to free black people, and then you go name yourself after two different slave owners. I just can't make that up.
Not just slave owners, slave traders. We have on two different occasions Muhammad standing by while black.
No, I know. That's what went on in that part of the Middle East. That's historical. That's in the Quran. I just can't. That's what I mean. They've had these leftist TV shows and movies made about me where they just randomly have actors act like they're me, or have other actors say, I got my news from Alex Jones, a homophobe that hates N-words and who hates all the Muslims. And it's just like weird leftist. What's that guy's name that did Mr. Show and all that, the big comedian? And it's just funny to them to just put these lies out about us when I want everybody to be free. I don't want anybody to be slave. I don't hate anybody.
By the way, let's deal with something here. If you're listening to me, now I have dealt with one Muslim, Cassius Clay, Muhammad Ali, but I do not criticize him other than to say he's misled. What I talk about is Islam. I do very little or almost no talking about Muslims.
That's right. We're not demonizing the individuals. We're demonizing what they claim to have an allegiance to.
And by the way, what did I say about Muhammad Ali? He was misled. He was fooled. He was deceived. So we need to deal with the subject of Islam. Islam is the doctrine found in the Quran, the Sirah, and the Hadith. It's in 3 books. It's Allah and Muhammad. Unless you're dealing with Allah and Muhammad, you're not dealing with Islam. And so we do not need to bash Muslims. One of the ironic things is I'm called a Muslim basher. And it's like, no, I don't. I just tell you what Muhammad did and said. I do not even bash Muhammad. I simply say, here's what he did. Here's what he said. When I told you that story about Muhammad advising deceit, I didn't say that Muhammad was a bad man for doing that. I just said, he said, deceive him. So we don't need to bash people at all, as indeed the first victim of Islam is the Muslim. And by the way, I've met many Muslims who know almost nothing about Islam.
Oh, of course. Listen, I'll say it. Just because of Muslim friends I had in high school and college, I was prejudiced almost towards not telling the truth because I thought these are such nice people, this couldn't be possible. Well, those are the doctors and the scientists, and a lot of them are heretics, I'd say, not in their own minds, you know, that tried to get away from Islam and be free. I mean, a lot of these folks aren't like secret jihadis sneaking in, climbing over the barbed wire to get us. But now you go to these poor, trodden, falling apart Muslim countries, and they're bringing them in from here. These folks, just like you go into poor areas of the South, that's when you find all the trashy, stupid Klans people. And it's the same thing. You get around, you get these really trashy, anti-human, anti-woman, Orthodox Muslims, and they are just like from another planet. We interviewed one in Germany yesterday, my crew did. He goes, I hate Germany, I hate these people, but everything's free and I'm staying. I'm jihading. And he's just this arrogant, like out in the open, I'm going to get you guy. They're just so, some of them are so honest about it.
Well, actually, they are quite honest about it because they know this. they're not going to be a